That's my first ever VST plugin, and I know it's not exactly setting the world on fire, and it can probably be done by a million other plugins in a million different ways, but I needed something to write just to learn how to do it, and that was my first attempt. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to show you some things that I like to do to make things super wide in stereo, but then collapse down to being perfectly acceptable in mono, because that's always the struggle. You put stereo widening things on, use effects to make things sound really stereo when originally they were mono, and then when you play it in mono through your crappy Bluetooth speaker, it sounds like absolute crap. So in this video I'm going to talk you through some examples that I've set up of things that I like to do, and I'm going to tease you at the end because I've written my first ever plugin, so I'm going to show you that at the end, which does some of this process at least. Anyway, let's get on with the video. So in example 1 here, I've got an acoustic guitar, which is just a single mic, even though it's called Acoustic L, because actually originally it was 2 different mics, but I've just picked one of the acoustic mics, so we've got a mono acoustic guitar, and I'm just going to play you a bit of that. I'm going to mute the stereo stuff and just play you a bit of that. Pretty standard stuff, acoustic guitar. It's got a bit of EQ and a bit of compression on it. So I am sending this via the sends to a channel called Delay Example 1, which is this group here. And on this, I've got a mono delay, 15 millisecond delay with no feedback at all. So it just does one repeat. It's 100% wet mix, and I've got a high pass filter set at 176.4, so call it 175 Hertz. And it's just below 9K, that's where the low pass filter is. So this particular delay is just delaying the whole signal by 15 milliseconds and basically doing a low and a high pass. And then after that, I've got the Waves S1 Imager plugin. You could use many plugins for this. I just use this because it's easy, and a lot of people have Wave subscriptions, and I do, so I just grabbed this one out, and basically all I've done is just flip the right hand side's polarity. So I've just turned the wave upside down of the right hand channel. So we've got a 15 millisecond delay signal, which is out of phase left to right. Now what happens when two things are out of phase with each other and then you sum them together in mono? They cancel out, because when you've got a 1 on one side, you've got a -1 on the other. You add them together and 1 and -1 equals 0. If it's 0.8 minus 0.8, sum them together, it's going to be 0. So this delayed signal will completely cancel in mono to absolutely nothing. I'm going to play the mono signal, and then I'm going to unmute this stereo effect channel, and you'll hear that it makes the sound beautiful and stereo. If you haven't got headphones on, or you're not listening in front of nice stereo speakers, I suggest you whack some headphones on for this, like I've done. But let's play through, and then I'm going to unmute the effects. So as you can hear, it instantly makes it sound wide, and it doesn't really clash with the mono guitar part. We've pushed it back a bit with the delay, and then we've put those two sides out of phase to give the width. But what happens when we collapse it to mono? So in the group where they all get sent, where I've got a smart comp 2 and a smart EQ, just giving it the EQ and the compression, I've got here another instance of the S1 Imager plugin, but this time I've got the width turned down to 0. So this is basically going to mono the signal. So if I play this, you'll get the stereo signal, and if I unbypass it, it will sum that stereo signal to mono. And you can see when we mono it, we just get that original acoustic mono mic back, which we can prove because I can play it monoed, and we can mute and unmute the effects channel. And even with the compressor and the EQ after it, it makes no difference whatsoever to the signal in mono, because none of that stereo processing we've done is coming through in the summed mono signal. But you take that out and you've got a lovely wide acoustic guitar. So that's a simple trick. All the others build on this. So in example 2, it's the same guitar, but I've got both the left and the right, which weren't left and right. One was close, that was the left one, and the one that's labelled right on here was a bit further away. So it's more like 2 mono mics, one a bit further away and one closer. So in this example, instead of sending the close mic to the delay channel, what we're going to do is we're going to put the delay and the plugin which reverses the polarity of the right hand side, we're going to put that over the second acoustic mic, so it's not the same microphone. And we're going to have a listen to that. Let's first in mono. And then with stereo in. And like the one before, if we sum this to mono, we lose that second mic, and muting it and unmuting it makes no difference. So that's another way you can mic something up with the idea of using it in stereo in mind, because sometimes if you use a close pair and you're trying to get the stereo image with that, sometimes they can have some minor phasing differences, or if you're moving around, and that will cause some problems with mono compatibility. A lot of the time, it can sound absolutely lovely. But having 2 mics, one in front and one a bit further away, you can always come back to just having a single mono mic, which in my opinion, when you're listening to something in mono, having a mono mic is a lot better than 2 mics that are then summed to mono. So by doing the polarity trick with the second mic and or delaying it a little bit, let's have a listen and see what happens if we take the delay off of that. And this is just the mic, the second mic with its polarity reversed on the right hand side. First mono. Now in stereo. So you're getting a lot more cancellation with the original signal without the delay. But with the delay in, it makes more sense. But because it's a different mic and it's, a bit further back in the room, you're not going to get as much obvious comb filtering effects on there, particularly if you want to push that stereo nice and loud. So that's just an extension of the first trick. So think about miking long ways and then doing something with that second mic rather than too close to get a stereo image, which might collapse into mono in a less predictable way. I was going to say, make sure you stick around till example 7 because I get to show you my first plugin that I've ever written. Okay, with example 3, we got the same acoustic guitar. We're back to one of the acoustic guitar mics, the closest one. And this time, instead of going to a delay, what I've got is just over the acoustic guitar in mono, I've got the Fame Studio Reverb, which is a shame to hear it in mono, but it still sounds good. So let's have a listen to that. So I've got a bit of mono reverb. So that is what you're going to hear in your mono Bluetooth speaker, and no more reverb than that. But on the second channel, the effects channel, I've got a UAD plate reverb, which is going to be our second reverb, which is going to be the one that's in stereo. And then after that, I've got an S1 Imager plugin, which is bringing that reverb completely mono. Even though it's a stereo channel, I'm bringing that reverb completely mono. and then a second instance of that same plugin just for illustrative purposes, so I can bypass things and whatever. I'm flipping the polarity of the right hand side using a second instance of that. So our reverb is now mono, but the right is polarity inverted to the left. So that reverb will cancel out when the whole thing sums to mono. So let's have a listen to what that sounds like first in mono, then I'll turn the stereo reverb on. I'm going to turn it up quite a bit just so you can hear, and it's going to be more tasteless than I actually use in a song, but here we go. So there's some nice wide reverb when we collapse it to mono. There's none of that second reverb anymore. Things are not going to get washy when they collapse to mono. You can have a nice tight mono mix and then have a really wide reverby stereo mix, and all will work. Obviously, you've got to use all of these things tastefully and use them in context, but still, these are interesting things that you can do to make things wide. Let's move on to example 4. So with example 4, we've got a vocal, but we're treating it in a very similar way than what we did with the first acoustic. But this time I've got a slapback delay on the mono vocal on the mono channel of the vocal. So let's just have a listen to that, because that's what you're going to hear in your summed mono channel through a Bluetooth speaker. It's a mystery to me why I shouldn't tell you the way that I'm feeling right now. So there's a slapback delay on that vocal there. But with the effects channel, I've got a second delay here. So let's have a listen first without, and then I'll put it on. It's a mystery to me why. And now the effects on. I shouldn't tell you the way that I'm feeling right now. I thought you should know that I can't seem to find. And same as before, that second delay that I've put on that has got the polarity reversed on the right hand side, so that will cancel out and get rid of that that thing that's making it sound really wide when we sum to mono on a crappy little Bluetooth speaker. So I will emulate that again with this plugin. How I'm gonna sleep when my dreams seem to keep you in mind. So you can see the monoed version there cancels out that second delay, and I can prove that by just playing and turning on and off this channel. It's a mystery to me. And you don't notice anything. That's something you can do to sort of give a vocal a really nice wide sound that doesn't get in the way when it gets summed to mono. In example 5, we're going to take a completely different approach with this. It's the acoustic guitar and the vocal. I've just got one acoustic guitar mic and one vocal mic. And on this, I've put 2 different instances of the frequency plugin. One on the acoustic and one on the vocal. And with these, I've got different cuts in the left and the right. So the left will be boosting and the right will be cutting, or in this one, I've got the right boosting and the left cutting. But the difference in EQ, the equal and opposite difference in EQ between the 2 plugins will give it a stereo image. So let's have a listen to that. It's a mystery to me why I shouldn't tell you the way that I'm feeling right now. So that makes it sound like they've been panned a bit. So you're getting some stereo image, but they haven't been panned, they've been EQ'd. So different frequency ranges are appearing in different speakers. But if you sum that to mono. It's a mystery to me why I shouldn't tell you the way that I'm feeling right now. All of the stuff that the EQ does just goes away because you've got equal and opposite cuts between the left and the right. And if I go to here and I just turn on and off these frequency plugins while this is summed to mono, you'll hear that they make no difference whatsoever. It's a mystery to me
Why?
Turning it on and off, it's making no difference at all.
I shouldn't tell you the way that I'm feeling right now.
But if I put it back to stereo,
I thought you should know that I can't seem to find
we turn them
how
mono.
I'm gonna sleep with my dreams seem to
Now a bit stereo. Now personally, with a guitar and a vocal, I did that on this so that you could hear the difference and hear the panning really well. I wouldn't do it with a guitar and a vocal like that. That's not something that I think sounds best. But if you had two different guitar parts, let's say you got two different guitarists and you don't want to completely pan them left and right, or just sort of pan them away and end up with issues with pan laws and the summing to mono and the level change or whatever like that. Sometimes using a bit of EQ, that sort of equal and opposite EQ on the left and the right with two guitar parts, can push them left and right and kind of just still keep a certain amount of centre to them as well, but give them enough width that it pushes it out the way to let a vocal that's panned in the centre come through. But yeah, it's an interesting way of dealing with things. Not my first choice, but I thought it was a good thing to put in this video. So let's move on to example 6 before we get to example 7, which is all about my first ever plugin. So with example 6, we've got the acoustic guitar and the vocal, but this time I'm keeping them both panned in the centre, and we're trying to keep them sort of fairly central, but the acoustic guitar I want to just make a bit wider so that it leaves space for the vocal in the centre. And to do this, I'm going to use the Waves GQ, their classic graphic EQ. And as you can see, I've got these kind of equal and opposite cuts on the graphic EQ in the kind of from the low mid 100 Hertz-ish up to about 6K. If I use the Q here, you can see that you can really alter the way that the stereo image will work. So let's have a listen to that acoustic first mono, and then I'll put it on. So this is mono. Stereo.
Just
be subtle on it.
Why? I shouldn't tell you the way that I'm feeling right now.
So one thing I like about this plugin is obviously the variable Q, being able to do that. Also, I've got it on 12 dB to make it obvious what it's doing, but actually just bringing it down to 6 dB. So these cuts are no longer 12 dB, they're 6 dB, and it can be a little bit more subtle. Just something like that, just taking it out of the centre compared to that, which is mono. And again, if we put on the overall stereo imager, so we bring it back to mono to make it sound like it would on a Bluetooth speaker, you can see that turning this plugin on and off will do nothing. Because the equal and opposite cuts on the left and the right will sum back to be exactly the same as they were in the first place, preserving your mono image, giving you a lovely stereo effect, but preserving your mono image perfectly. So the other night I was bored, as you are sometimes. I was sitting in the front room. I took my laptop from here into the front room and I sat down with a YouTube video on the telly, and I thought, you know what I've never done? I've never written a VST plugin. I'm going to see whether I can do it. Now, I've also not really done anything serious in C++, which is what you've got to learn to do this. So I thought I'm going to sit down for an evening and teach myself how to write a plugin. And I thought this would be the perfect thing to do. So I could do it with one plugin without sends and all the other stuff. I actually managed in an evening to write a successful VST plugin, which I'm actually quite pleased with. I need to bug test it and make it more robust. I will upload it probably to GitHub and give it away for free. You can have a mess around with it. But yeah, it's quite exciting because I'm thinking, well, I could write some interesting plugins that people could give me suggestions, and I could write some interesting plugins, because that's the side of audio engineering that I really like, is actually the engineering. It's like writing the plugins or building something physically to work in the analog world, because that's what I consider real engineering. So I'm trying to do a bit of that at the moment. I wouldn't say I'm brilliant at it yet, but I'm trying my best. But here it is. Here's the RS2, which is the name of my studio. So this is the RS2 mono to stereo. Looks very rudimentary at the moment. As you can see, it's the same thing as the first example. It's a 15 millisecond delay. I've got the wet around -9. I've got the dry at 0. I've got a high pass and a low pass sitting in there, and you've got the polarity for the left and the right there. So this plugin basically does what I did in example 1. And let's have a listen, see if it sounds the same. And it works, doesn't it? It works. I've written a plugin. Yay! Look, and I even made it resizable. Oh, that took ages. But I made it resizable. After messing around, you would have heard there. As I'm changing the delay time while it's playing, you're hearing this kind of chorusy sound going on. I thought, that's cool. Wouldn't it be nice to add in a low frequency oscillator to modulate the delay time? So that's exactly what I did, which should still cancel because that's all happening in mono before the polarity phase, so the polarity flip. So that should still cancel exactly the same as it would on the other examples. So I'm just going to put a little bit of rate, a little bit of depth in, and we'll... Some to mono. All cancels. Doesn't look the best yet, but it does work. I've started experimenting with upping the UI game, but at least it's in the right blue. To match my channel. But yeah, that's my first ever VST plugin, and I know it's not exactly setting the world on fire, and it can probably be done by a million other plugins in a million different ways, but I needed something to write just to learn how to do it, and that was my first attempt. And for a first attempt, I don't think that's too bad. I've got to say two things in that, caveats, is number one, although I haven't written VST plugins, I've written plenty of code that's dealt with audio. I've written EQs, I've written compressors, I've written even the code on some of my videos that I'm doing where I'm doing a mix and I've got the two microphones up. I've written things which detects which microphone is the loudest and will automatically crossfade between the two, so I'm not sitting there having to manually pick the two. A lot of those tools I write using the Formula plugin, where you can effectively open the plugin. It gives you a text editor where you can write C code. I've featured that before on this channel. I wrote a modulating EQ which cancels down to mono perfectly. I suppose a precursor to this video. So yeah, I have dealt with audio signals in code before, and although I've never programmed in C++, I have programmed in C. I know JavaScript inside out. I know C#. I started off BBC Basic and Visual Basic and other stuff. Like, I know programming well enough, so it wasn't like I was coming out of nowhere with it. And the second thing is ChatGPT, GitHub Copilot. They are your friends when you know what you want to do, but you don't know how to do it in that language. So there were bits that I'd either write in C or even write in JavaScript, the logic that I wanted, and it would write the C++ for me or edit my code to make it C++ compatible. So, you know, I'm not proclaiming to be a genius or anything, being able to just never code in C++ and then in an evening I've knocked up a plugin. But I'm still, even with the AI help, I'm still very pleased with what I did. So yeah, I hope this video has brought you some joy. That's what I'm here for, is to bring you some joy, hopefully. If you like this video, please like it, please subscribe, please leave me a comment and share the video. I remembered all of them. See you in another video. Cheers.